most jobs will be wiped out. The United States economy has been on shaky ground lately, and while the country has recently seen some growth in numbers, most people are still convinced that the recession is coming soon and will wipe out most of the jobs. The question of how most of the jobs will be wiped out has got many answers, but it's worth examining what these are to see where you might need to make changes in your career, as well as to make preparations to ensure you wouldn't be hit as hard during these recessions as others will be. However, the recession is coming, and it's going to be pretty ugly if you're unemployed or underemployed in any way, which seems to be the majority of the country. We'll go over how most of the jobs will get wiped out when this recession hits, and how you can avoid being left behind, disadvantaged and unemployed. Unless you want to be, that is. Hello there folks, you are most welcome to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. Like and tell us your candid opinion in the comments. You might want to stick till the end of this video, because it's going to be fantastic. Alright then, let's ciao. These are tiring times, and unfortunately, the news on TV and in the papers are overwhelmingly negative. Many businesses are closing their doors as a direct result of people's inability to make ends meet. So, what can we do to keep our jobs in such a harsh economic times? It may seem like an easy answer to fire people, but that's not an option most businesses want to take. You may not realize it, but whether we're in an economic crisis or not, our jobs are always at risk of getting wiped out shortly. Companies want to keep down the prices of their product and services so that they can compete with other companies, and their ideal method is to replace their human employees with technology and machines. In reality, there is no way that your job can be replaced by something more efficient or cost-effective in the eyes of your employer, but you do have options to prepare yourself and possibly save your job from being wiped out. More than 13 million individuals are currently unemployed in the United States. For a world power like the United States, that's pretty huge. Over 10% of the labor force. Many of them have been jobless for 6 months or longer, or have given up hope on ever working again. As long as unemployment rates stay high, we will see many major economic and societal changes. Experts say the US economy would soon start experiencing this fact. For one thing, many jobs won't exist anymore. For example, if a company goes bankrupt because it can't keep up with its bills during the recession, all its employees will lose their jobs and likely never get them back, even after the recession ends. If you are wondering how the recession will affect your job, there are some key things to know. Companies will cut costs by laying off workers and cutting hours. Just like many jobs lost in 2008 never returned, the economy has been struggling since 2008, and it will take more than one recovery for many jobs to come back. As the workforce shrinks, those who remained employed will have to work harder. One company may need 2 people doing what 3 used to do before. What will be affected by this recession? The recession will have a huge impact on the American economy. Due to this, many people are wondering how can they protect their jobs and finances. The truth is, it will be very difficult to keep your job in this economic climate. Not only will you have difficulty maintaining your lifestyle as costs increase, but also your employer may not want to keep you on staff due to the lack of work available for them. However, there are some things you can do to ensure that you are prepared for any changes that may occur in your life during these hard times. As I'm pretty sure you've heard before, it is important to save money now because when the time comes, you'll need a buffer. By keeping some cash now, you'll give yourself time to make adjustments should something happen and help you reduce any unnecessary stress that could come with not being financially prepared. A question you might ask, could this happen again? Yes, the next economic turndown is just around the corner. It may be long before it actually happens, but it will eventually have a major impact on society. If there is another recession, retail employment will be among the first to go. This means that all the mall stores will close, and most people who work there won't have a job anymore. People who work in auto sales or car dealerships also face this risk. With fewer people buying cars, these employees will also be without a job. Another industry facing layoff is construction. Many companies that build houses and other structures rely on new constructions to keep their employees employed. When this business falls off because of the lack of demand, many more workers will find themselves out of work. One industry that could be particularly hard hit by a global economic downturn is the tech industry. Consider how much money you've spent on electronics like TVs, computers, and appliances for your home. One click is all it takes to buy any of these things online. Without major improvements to brick-and-mortar shop websites, they will only stand as replacements when it comes time to buy something new. Even worse yet would be if smartphones replace home phone lines and desktop computers altogether. If that happened, tens of thousands of jobs would vanish overnight due to one tech innovation. But how exactly would the recession destroy jobs and wipe out the middle class? During recession, the middle class will shrink and many jobs will be wiped out. The rich will get richer and the poor, poorer. The current economic environment has created a perfect storm for financial collapse. The job market is already suffering, with nearly 15 million people underemployed or unemployed. And there are at least 5 reasons things will only get worse in the coming years. First, companies have cut back on hiring. Second, as families start living paycheck to paycheck, more and more money goes towards essentials like food and housing, which means less discretionary spending like buying clothes or eating out. Third, employers are raising prices on goods so that they can keep profit margins high. Employees can't afford those high prices, so they buy less of their employers. Fourth, countries all over the world that depend on export, such as Canada and Australia, are facing massive declines in demand from Europe and China because Europeans don't have enough money to spend outside their own country. At the same time, Chinese consumers want fewer imported goods. Do you need to worry about it? The recession of 2008 was a disaster. Nearly every industry across the board saw significant job losses and an overall decrease in business. And now there is talk of another recession may be coming, with experts predicting it will start in 2023. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you're currently unemployed or underemployed, the future doesn't look too good. But what about those who are employed? There is a chance your job could get wiped out during the next recession, which is something to worry about. Here's how most jobs will likely get wiped out during the next recession so that you can stay one step ahead of the curve and prepare yourself accordingly. If your job deals with things like manufacturing, construction, or retail, then it's more likely to get cut. If your company relies heavily on exports, like auto manufacturing, then it will have a high likelihood of closing down. Similarly, if they rely heavily on imports like retailers, the survival rate would also be low. And finally, if your company has been going through tough times lately, like retail, then its chances for survival will be even lower than before, because the market wouldn't give them much help either way anymore. But the real good question is, if there is anything you can do now to prepare. There is really nothing you can do about it. Think about all the people who work in food service industry, restaurant employees, baristas, bartenders, waiters and waitresses. All those people will lose their jobs when we run out of money to spend on eating out. The same goes for retail workers. They'll lose their jobs because we won't be able to afford to buy anything new. And then there are those of us who work in the public sectors. Teachers, police officers, and firefighters. We are all going to have a tough time making ends meet. And we can't make as much money from taxes because our state and federal budgets are running on empty too. But there is something you can do to help yourself prepare for this recession that's coming. You need to start thinking about your fallback career if you lose your current job. What would you do if you had no income at all? Would you teach yoga? Become an Etsy seller? Start driving Uber? So, when are jobs going to come back? The answer is not for a long time. It is sad but true. Replacing jobs lost in the recession will go on over a decade, and it could take up to 20 years to replace all the jobs lost due to globalization. I know you love this video, so don't forget to turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss any videos like this. Yeah, before I forget, hit that subscribe button.